Rob from Georgia here with you, and it is week 9 over what we call our schizophrenic synopsis and a little bit of family dynamics this week. Both James and I are going to be looking at 2 separate films, but have some little bit of continuity between the 2, I think. And of course, I am taking on Spider Baby from 1967, although that's the year it was released. It actually was filmed in '64, but it took about 3 years to see the old drive-in circuit and whatnot. James on the other side of things is going to take a look at the old original OG Texas Chainsaw Massacre from, what do I want to say, '74? Toby Hooper, of course. And so together we're going to talk a little bit about some family dynamics. And of course, this is the Arrow release, double disc release with a booklet and just absolutely loaded, including Jack Hill's short piece in there, his first short he ever did, and just with a wealth of the extras and whatnot, commentaries with Jack Hill and Sid Haig, I believe. He joins him. Now, it's Jack Hill's film, again, released in '67. Lon Chaney Jr. heads, and I do believe this is his last role. Pretty sure it's his last role. And I had to sober up a little bit to do it, but that's a story in of itself. Kara Ohmart, of course, is Emily. Her sister, Jill Bannerman, she absolutely steals the show as Virginia. Beverly Washburn as Elizabeth. And Quinn K. Redeker as Peter. And Peter actually serves as our narrator, and of course there's a few others, but we cannot forget about Sid Haig, who plays Ralph, who may be the sickest of the bunch. And but anyways, again, the Arrow release, what a phenomenal release, and the only reason that I ever even woke up to this film initially was because of the 22 Shots of Moods and Horror highlighted it way, way back. I can't remember the episode number now, but this is one of their feature reviews, and I'd never even heard of this movie before, and so I immediately checked out to find what was out there and found the Arrow release, and I fell in love with this movie from the very first time. Man, I'm telling you, it does not get old. But it is, at the heart, this is probably the film that acts as the greatest predecessor to what we'll get in '74 with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And if there was a film that came before Spider Baby, then it was The Old Dark House, James Whale in 1932. And you sort of get these family dynamics, this dysfunctional family film where people get washed up on the doorstep, so to speak, have to spend the night or so, and things just do not go well for them. And Spider Baby, man, when this thing came out in '67, I had to have shocked with a lot of the underlining themes and whatnot. I mean, you got everything from incest implied to necromancy to, I mean, it is just a crazy, crazy film for its day. And so anyways, really at the heart of this, you have Lon Chaney, who basically acts as the caretaker to the family, and sort of is a debt owed to the father, who was the father of the family. And this family suffers from a disease. They call it the Mary disease. It is the Mary family. And it is a disease that just over time, it just eats away and causes the families to just sink into insanity and die very, very early. And in fact, in this house, you've got the 2 girls, you got Ralph, are the 3 main ones, and then you've got, I believe it's Dad, who is, he's long dead, but he resides in his bedroom in the bed. But down deep in the cellar, you've got some aunts and uncles and stuff living down underneath the floorboards. And what's really interesting about that is we'll see a lot of Spider Baby, not just in the Texas Chainsaw, but even with Rob Zombie's film House of a Thousand Corpses, I think is more of a tipping of the hat to Spider Baby than it is to the Texas Chainsaw. And I know that's what everyone says, and I'm sure there's a bit of that. I'm sure there's a nod to it, but man, Spider Baby, it's just there's too much going on in both films that you can just set side by side and look at one another. And so you basically what really drives the narrative here is as I said, Lon Chaney sort of is holding down the fort until, I guess, until they're all dead and gone, and then he can just sort of board up the house and whatever. But unfortunately, some family shows up looking to basically pull the rug out from under people's feet, I guess, and sort of claim the inheritance, because no one seems to be answering any letters or whatever. So they arrive seeking to basically ascertain the situation and see if there's a way that they can basically undermine it and just outright take the property. And so this involves spending the night in the house, and of course things are not going to go very well for them at all. One of them being the narrator, who does serve as a relation to the family, and although he is untouched by the disease, the door is left open to whether he may be a carrier of the disease, not knowing it. And so when you really get down and look into this film, man, there are some disturbing scenes in this movie. I mean, whether it's Virginia crawling up on the bed and kissing her dead dad, or finding the aunts and uncles down under the floorboards, who basically just get fed from time to time. And there's a great eloquent dinner scene that involves Lon Chaney at the head, and sort of a throwback to the Universal Monster days with, I think it may be Elizabeth, perhaps. One of the characters at the table is talking about the old heyday of the Universal era, and Lon Chaney has this beautiful line that he gives, sort of to the effect of, "There's going to be a full moon tonight," and sort of gains the weird look and reaction from the characters. And but it is a really super bizarre dinner scene, which in its own piece you do see again in the Texas Chainsaw film, of course, not quite as demented-like, but in its own way, Spider Baby, man, it is creepy. Its opening scene, you get a mail delivery guy, and he's coming up, poking around the area, trying to see if there's anyone there. And of course, no one's helping him out as he approaches the house. No one wants to have anything to do with this house. And so he gathers up all his courage and kind of wanders in on the property, up the stairs. And it's awesome, because as the camera comes in and you sort of look up at the house like that, I mean, I'm telling you, all you think is the original Texas Chainsaw when they're first approaching the house from the front side. The house is so ominous when the camera is placed at that angle. And this poor guy, he just kind of goes up, and he's looking around, knocking on the door, and he sees there's a window open, and he makes a terrible, terrible mistake of sticking his head into the window. And from there on, this movie is absolutely just a riot. I mean, for 1967, for again a lot of the themes that it takes on itself, you can see a direct line easy from, let's say, Old Dark House up through Texas Chainsaw, and of course Rob Zombie will carry on a lot of this with his own House of a Thousand Corpses. And so a lot of interesting things here. And of course, in the end, there is the door again is left open, and in the commentary, Jack Hill and Sid Haig joke about how he has planned out, Jack Hill that is, has planned out what would be the inevitable sequel and how he would carry on the narrative. Unfortunately, once this film came out all the way up to the present time, there's really been no interest in this film until the Arrow release, really, I think. And I don't know if we'll ever get a sequel or not, but there are plenty of interesting ways to take it. Of course, he has his own unique vision of where he would take it, but it stands as just an absolutely phenomenal, creepy riot of a film that I, for one, if it wasn't for the 22 shots of movies before, I would have never even heard of this film. And I don't usually just buy films cold, but I did this, and again, I fell in love with it for the first time I put this thing in and watched. And yeah, I mean, you kind of get a little bit there. I'll say, you know, with the transfer, it's sort of off topic a little bit, but it does, to prove just how awesome the transfer is, it's almost too good for its Oh, good. There's a scene where the camera's approaching the car, and in the sort of reflection of the windows in the car, you can actually see the film crew standing right there. This probably was never visible back in the days of VHS tapes, formatting and whatnot. But with the transfers that we have today, unfortunately, a lot of these things do start to come up, right? So, Spider Baby, have you seen it? Have you checked it out? What do you think about it? Have you ever thought of it in terms of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and how they really fit into the same sort of dysfunctional, you know, family sort of setting? And if there's another thing that sets this film on par with the Texas Chainsaw, is this film, Spider Baby, was shot in 12 days in August in '64 on an extremely hot stage, no air conditioning at all. The environment made for the principal actors was very, very harsh, and anyone who knows anything about Texas Chainsaw knows that the environment was as equally harsh. And sometimes, boy, when you put characters into real-time environment where it's a very harsh conditions, some beautiful things will be put onto that camera. And so if you've never seen the film, just do what I did and just buy it cold off of Amazon and just get your Arrow edition. I can't imagine, if you're a fan of the Texas Chainsaw and you're a fan of if you've seen The Old Dark House or Rob Zombie's House of a Thousand Corpses, I think you will be pleasantly surprised by this film. It is unfreaking real. So anyways, a little bit of family dynamics and films that really go far to just put us into the midst of some families who have really gone wrong. In this case, because of a deteriorating disease that has basically just destroyed this family. So I'd be curious, very curious to hear James's take on the Texas Chainsaw and what good stuff he may have for us on the other side of things. As always, we end these things off with Go Freaking Bills.